Hello there everybody, Data Pioneer here with the Linux Unix Tech Channel. Today is Monday, May the 19th, 2025. Hope everybody's doing okay out there. Today on the channel what I thought I would do is I thought I would show you how you can easily set up your own personal cloud, open source, Linux based on a single board computer device in your home lab and run Docker applications through it and also access drives on that device. And if you want to take a look at how to do that, I will show you how to do that, and we'll do that right after this. Okay, I'm back, and so let's get into it. First off, the application that I'm referring to that I have running in my home lab here, which is Linux based, as I said, and open source, is called Casa OS. So let's go out to the Casa OS website and take a look at it. This is Casa OS, and it's at casaos.zimaspace.com. And it just says your personal cloud OS, so your way of smart home, your way of file syncing, and your way of etc. So, you know, it's a nice setup that I have. Very easy to do. Doesn't require a lot of knowledge, technical skills, and especially in networking. Unlike most NASs, I mean, I've got a Western Digital cloud set up in my home. And it's a little more complex. It does require a little bit of networking know-how and some other things to set it up, but this does not. And there is a live demo, so if you click this button right here, it'll take you out to the live demo. And I think that live demo is done on what's called a Zima board, which is a single board computer as well. A little beefier than I think a Raspberry Pi, but not that much more so, but different setup, a little bit different technology, and so some of the nuances might be a little bit different in the setup itself, but that's taken care of for you in the actual installation of Casa OS, because to install it, it's very easy to do as well, and I'll show you how to do that. But let me back up and show you first of all and talk briefly here about what you need for minimum system requirements. Now I'm running my Casa OS setup on, like I said, my home lab single board. It's a Raspberry Pi single board computer model 4 gig model, and it's running really well. I mean, it's not burping at all, complaining or anything like that, and so I'm very happy with it. I don't think it would run that well on a Raspberry Pi Model 3, although you could try it if you have one. If you don't have the Model 4. I don't think it would run all that well on 2 gigs of RAM, so you probably need at least 4 gig minimum. And then the processor I'm running on this Raspberry Pi Model 4 is a 1.5 gigahertz processor, and that seems to be sufficient, 4-core processor, and that seems to be just fine as well. Now the micro SD card that's in my Raspberry Pi Model 4 is a little beefier than the standard that comes with the kit, the Cana kit that comes with the Raspberry Pi itself. I think that is a 32 gig micro SD card. That's probably not going to be enough space, especially if you're going to run several Docker applications that Casa OS will allow you to run, to develop and run. So I would go ahead and go out on Amazon or some other place and get a 64 gig micro SD card, or even better, 128 gig. You can even get a 1 terabyte micro SD card these days for like $70, so you might even want to think about that. I am running a 128 gig micro SD card that I've had for a while in my system, and it seems to be running just fine and supplying me with enough room. I think I've installed 8 Docker apps in my setup, and I've only used about maybe 10% of the space, so not a big deal. All right, so let's go out and let me go back here and show you what I did to set up the system initially. So I'm running a Raspberry Pi Model 4, as I said. And so in order to take that micro SD card and format it and partition it and install the operating system on it that you need, this will run on any distro of Linux that I know of, Fedora or Debian or Ubuntu. I happen to be running it on Debian 12 Bookworm, and let me show you how I set that up. So I'm using this utility here called a Raspberry Pi Imager, all right, because I am using a Raspberry Pi as the single board computer, and it makes a lot of sense to do that, and I'll show you why in just a few seconds. Now, if you're not running not using rather a single board computer, Raspberry Pi, but instead an Intel NUC or a Zima board, for instance, then you probably want to use a Balena Etcher or some other imager to do this. But I'm using a Raspberry Pi, so I'm going to use the Raspberry Pi Imager. That's what it's designed for. So anyway, let me choose the choose device, and so I am running a Raspberry Pi Model 4. Now, if you are running the 8 gig model, I think that it comes in 4 gig and 8 gig, or it may just be 8 gig. Then select this one, but I'm running the 4 gig model, Raspberry Pi 4, so I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to choose the operating system. Now you want to choose a 64-bit operating system, and in my case I want to use Debian 12 Bookworm, which is the Raspberry Pi OS 64-bit preferred recommended operating system here. So I want to select that, and then I'm going to choose the storage. Now you would choose the micro SD card, but I'm going to demonstrate this. I'm using a Patriot memory stick, so I wanted to select that to show you how this works. But you would remember this would be your micro SD card. Then I'll select next, and then here's how you set up your operating system customizations. Now this is very important for you Raspberry Pi users. This way you don't have to necessarily connect up a monitor, keyboard, and a mouse to your Raspberry Pi after you flash it in order to get into it. What I'm going to do is show you how you can SSH into it without having to do any of that. And so just click this Edit Settings button, and then come up to the General tab, and then these will all be unchecked. So just check your set host name. Put in a host name here. I've got raspberrypi.local, and then select this box and set up your username and password. In my case, I've got Data Pioneer as a username, and then I selected a strong password here for my Raspberry Pi. And then if you want to use wireless, I'm using wired, but if you want to use wireless, you can select this box, give it your SSID or home wireless network that you're running. In my case, it's Hardy, and give it the password for your network, and wireless LAN country that you're in. So here you would set it up for US, and so we'd come down here and select US. I believe US is on the list. So let me see if I can pull this down. I can't do it, so I'm just going to forget about it because I don't use wireless. But US should be on that list. It's set up for Great Britain here. And then select this box for set locale settings. And I think it comes out of the box set to UTC. So I set the time zone here to be America, New York. You can just hit this and select it. So America, New York is on the list, so I selected it. And then the keyboard, down arrow, and select US as well. And then click Save. Forgot to show you something. Let's go back into Settings. Go over to Services, and this is how you get into the Raspberry Pi without having to use a keyboard, mouse, and monitor. So click on Services and select either the Use Password Authentication if you want to do that. However, I use SSH key, so I'll select did select the Allow Public Key Authentication only, and this would not allow password authentication, by the way, so you're not going to be able to do both. You're only going to be one or the other. And I already have a key set up in here that I generated, but if you don't have a key already, then this is going to be highlighted, this Run SSH Keygen. Mine's grayed out because I already have the key. Hit that button and it will generate a, I believe, 4096 key RSA key encryption key pair for you, which would be the private key and the public key, and then click Save. All right, and then what you would do here is you would then hit, would you like to apply the OS customization settings? You say yes, and then you say yes here. It will start formatting and partitioning your micro SD card. It will do that, and 128 gigs for my system here. I think it took about maybe 5-7 minutes, and then it does a verification as well. It takes another 5 minutes or so. Not very, you don't have to verify it, but if you want to, it's recommended actually to do that, but you don't have to. So it's all together takes maybe 10-15 minutes to get that 128 gig card ready to run in your Raspberry Pi. So I'm going to go ahead and say no here and close this out. Okay, so once you have that set up and you got your micro SD card formatted and partitioned, then just remove the micro SD card from your adapter that you have in your system, and then place that micro SD card into your Raspberry Pi and just fire it up. And when it takes about 2 minutes, and it will boot up into Debian 12 Bookworm, which is the Raspberry Pi OS, and then you'll simply SSH into your Raspberry Pi and launch the terminal here. And let me just bump up the terminal so you can see a little bit better. Okay, that should be a little bit better for you to see. Now you'll need to SSH into your Raspberry Pi, and since we set it up with the Raspberry Pi Imager, that'll be very easy to do because we have that SSH key that we've already set up, and we don't need to attach a monitor, keyboard, mouse here. Now, one of the things that you need to know is the IP address, obviously, of your Raspberry Pi. I happen to know what mine is, but if you don't, you'll need to go into your router and go out onto the network through your router and see what's running on the network and locate your Raspberry Pi IP address that way, or you can install a utility that will let you scan your network and determine your IP address of the Pi that way. Like, again, I happen to know what mine is, so I'm going to go ahead and SSH into it. And so to do that, I'm just going to run SSH, and the IP address is 192.168.1.125. Hit the enter key, and I am in. So it sees the key and lets me in since I have the private key that matches the public key in the Raspberry Pi. Alright, so I'm in the Raspberry Pi now, and the command that you need to run to update your operating system, I'm running Debian 12 here, so it's an aptitude-based system, is sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade -y. Of course, this is the and sign here in Linux, and so that means that run this command first, and if it passes successful, then run this command. And then this option here, the -y, means any questions that are asked during this process, go ahead and just answer yes to it. Alright, so you're good to go. Let that run, and then once that's completed, you're pretty much ready to install the framework for Casa OS. And to do that, you need to go back out here to the website, and so let me pull that website back up again here, and that's at casaos.zimaspace.com, and there's a one-line command right here in the middle of the screen. You don't even need to copy it. All you have to do is come over here, or type it rather. Just go over here and hit this button. That'll copy it to your clipboard, and then go back out to your Raspberry Pi where you've SSH'd into it, and do Control-Shift-V and hit enter, and the Casa OS installation program will run. Now I'm not going to do it again because I've already run it, and I don't want to disrupt the setup that I have. But that will take about anywhere from, I would say, 2 to 3 minutes, maybe perhaps a little longer depending on your system, to run. It's totally hands-off. You don't really need to answer any questions or anything like that. It detects your Raspberry Pi operating system, sets it up, and then it will, at the end, it will tell you when it's successful. It will tell you to go out onto your web browser to the IP address of your Pi to a particular port, and I think by default it's port 80. I have reset mine to a different port, but by default it's port 80. So if you have anything running on port 80 on your system already, then if you're a network, then you'll need to change that away from port 80 to some other port. But if not, then just leave it the way it is, and you're good to go. So after you've run that, then you need to go back out to your web browser, and let's go there now. Okay, I'm out on the web browser now on my desktop computer, and I'm going to go ahead and access Casa OS that is running on my Raspberry Pi. Now, when you do this after you're installing Casa OS for the first time, what you'll do is you will go to the IP address of your single board computer, whatever that might be, and you don't need to put any port assignments in because by default Casa OS uses port 80 now. I've already installed Casa OS and I've already set it up, and I don't want to destroy that, so but I wanted to use it to demonstrate it to you. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a port assignment which is different from port 80, and I have to do that to get to it, and I had to do that for a reason. I'll explain that later. And so here I'm going to go into the IP address of my Raspberry Pi and just enter that 192.168.1.125, and the port assignment that I've set for Casa OS is 8800. Alright, and hit enter, and here I am in Casa OS. Now I need to show you that, or to tell you rather, that what you see here is not what you get out of the box. A lot of what you see is what you get out of the box, but ignore all of these Docker applications or containers that are running. These are ones that I've installed after I've installed Casa OS initially out of the box. So you don't get these that come up for you automatically. All you get is the App Store and the Files folder here. Alright. You also don't get these two drives that are over here because I've attached those after the fact. All you get is the storage area, this network status, widget settings, the system status here, which gives you CPU usage and RAM of your single board computer, and then this time and date information up here. You got information over here in these two boxes, and then the search field for searching Casa OS. All right. So let's get a quick run through here of Casa OS. So on the storage area over here, it gives you the status of the single board computer that you're running Casa OS on. Again, Casa OS is an application framework that resides on top of the operating system. It is not a true operating system in and of itself. Even though it's named Casa OS, it is not an operating system. It's just an application layer that sits on top of whatever Linux-based operating system you're using. Alright, so it tells you here that it's healthy. It tells me that I'm using 13 0.12 gigabytes of storage out of a total of 116.64 gigabytes reported, but it's actually 128 gigabyte micro SD card. And that's good. And what I have done is I've attached 2 drives to my Raspberry Pi through the USB 3.0 ports that I have on there, 2 of those. One of them is a Western Digital 3.5-inch standard 10,000 RPM spinning hard drive. It's in a hard drive enclosure bay, and that's this one right here. And then this one is called a BUP Slim BL, which is a Seagate compact spinning hard drive. It's basically a small compact drive that you would use like for a laptop if you took along to an airport or something and you wanted to have an external storage capacity other than your laptop. That's attached to the Raspberry Pi as well. So these 2 are attached, and that's for demonstration purposes right now. These are both 2 terabyte drives, and so I've got 4 terabytes total storage here, but they're segmented into 2 drives of 2 terabytes each. Now, one of the things I need to explain to you is Casa OS, right now it's in beta, and it's beta version 0.4. I've upgraded mine to beta 0.4.4.2, and you can do that once you install it. You should have a link down here. It'll be in this area right down here on the screen. You just click it and it will give you instructions on how to upgrade. You just run the curl command in the terminal once you SSH into your Raspberry Pi or whatever your single board computer is to the operating system that you have installed, be it Debian or whatever. And it should allow you to upgrade Casa OS to the latest version. I'm running Casa OS version 0.4.4.2 right now. All right, so it's in beta, and so if I go up here to this little gear and click it, it opens up the storage manager, and if this were not in beta, see it says beta, it's got a little flag here, then there is something here called merge storages, and there is a file system called mergefs that if you click this button and it were not in beta, this warning banner wouldn't be here, and you'd be able to click both of these drives and hit the submit button, and it would merge both of these drives into one storage volume. And so when it came out on the other end, you would have one 4 terabyte volume, contiguous space, and that would be reflected when you return to this interface. You would only see one volume out here of 4 terabytes, and that's good. You know, it allows you to work with the 2 drives and use one volume as opposed to 2. Only problem is it doesn't offer any redundancy. You're not setting up a RAID here like a mirror, RAID 1. It gives you somewhat of redundancy, and what I mean by that is with RAID 1, a mirror between the 2 drives. If one drive falls over, you can replace the drive that fails, and the RAID will automatically rebuild the drive, and you retain the data. You don't lose anything. If you've got a total volume of 4 terabytes here with mergefs, once this is out of beta, that doesn't give you any redundancy, because if that one or the other drive falls over, you're going to lose all the data that's on the total volume. When it's in this configuration without being merged, if you lose any data on either of these 2 drives because one of the drives falls over, you'll lose the data on the drive that falls over. You'll retain the data on the other drive, but you won't be able to recapture the data that's on the drive that failed. All right. So what I did, and this is another video, I'm not going to get into it, this is beyond the scope of this one. I found a way, I discovered the way myself of taking something, and like I said, I'll put this in another video, but I was able to get redundancy to some degree in that I was able to go in here and take the files that are on one drive and not mirror them over to the other drive, but back them up to the other drive, so that if this drive falls over, then the files are backed up here. Now, if the backed up drive falls over, yeah, then you'll lose your data. So it's not perfect, but it's better than what you have. All right, that's another video, and I'll show you that in a video that follows. Show you how to set that up until this comes out of beta. I have no idea how long it's going to take the developers here of Casa OS to come out of beta. It could be, you know, a month, it could be 6 months, could be a year before it comes out of beta and allows you to do at least the merger FS. Now, I did attempt another procedure using Cockpit, which was almost successful, but it didn't work, to build a RAID so that I could actually mirror these two drives. And it worked all the way up to the very end of the procedure, and then it failed. So I was never able to complete the process. So that's not going to work for us with Casa OS right now. So I'm not even going to attempt to show you that. All right, so beyond that, you can access these drives and the data that's on these drives by going here to Files, and you select Files, you get in here. Here are the two drives, HDD1 and HDD2 is what I've had them designated as. So if I select HDD1, I've created a Samba share called Source Files, and then on the other drive I've created a share called Casa Duplicate. You can call it anything you want to, but I called it that for a reason. There is a Docker application called Casa Duplicate, which is a backup application, which doesn't work here in Casa OS, so that's why I'm not using it. But it's there. But anyway, so if we go back out to HDD1, to get that source files shared folder, all I did was right-click here in this empty space, select New Folder. And let's just call this Test Folder for lack of a better name. And click the Submit button. You can hit Shared here if you want to, or hit Submit. And you've got the little shared emblem here. It means it's being shared out on the network. And if you hit the three dots, okay, you can see it's already being shared out. Now I shared this earlier, that's why I picked it up. If I hadn't shared this one out earlier, then I would have the option to share it right here. And so it's being shared out. And so that means I can touch this folder anywhere on my network, on a laptop, a tablet PC, whatever, as long as I have access to the network and can get into that network that it's running on, the Raspberry Pi is running on, which is my Class C network on the router, 192.168.1.0/24. Then I can hit this folder or files and work with it. So let me go ahead and delete this folder. I don't need it anymore. So I'll just do a delete. I actually stop sharing first, and then go out here and delete this folder. So hit delete, and are you sure? Say yes. So let's get into this folder, and I have some files in this folder that I put there. And to replicate these files onto the second drive to offer somewhat redundancy, to protect these files in case this drive falls over, I have a backup utility called Vorta Backup, which is a Borg backup utility running in Linux on the desktop. And so I have another shared folder out on HDD2 called Casa Duplicate, and inside there is the Borg backup configuration. So you can't access these files directly, okay? You could copy them over manually. That's okay, but you'd have to do it manually. I want to do something, or I wanted to have something that would be done automatically. I wouldn't have to worry about it. And so what I did basically was I set up a system where I could take my Vorta backup utility, and like I said, it'll be a separate video, and I was able to set it up on a schedule so that the files here in this particular share get backed up every night at 3 a.m. in this folder right here, Casa Duplicate. And if I lose any of the files here because the drive falls over, I can just replace the drive and go in here to Vorta Backup, restore the files onto the new drive, and I've got them back again. So I'm not going to lose anything here. All right, so that's how that works. It's kind of like a workaround basically for the fact that Casa OS is not ready for prime time in being a true NAS right now, but I want to show you where Casa OS shines, and it is ready for prime time, and that is in the area of Docker containers. Now, if you're not familiar with Docker, don't be alarmed. You're not going to have to learn Docker in order to use this. I happen to know Docker, but so I can work with it a little bit better than most people, but what I'm going to show you, you can do very easily. And so what you do is just ignore the fact, like I said, that these exist right now. Go into the App Store here, and you've got a plethora of applications here that you can work with. I mean, there must be, 100 or more applications that are available now. Even if there's an application or Docker container application here that doesn't exist, that that exists, that you want to bring into Casa OS, you can go up here to the custom install area and click that, and you can set that up if you know Docker. Now you need to know how Docker works. You need to know a little bit about Docker Compose in order to set that up. But if you wanted to set up a basic Docker container running out on your local network through the standard default out-of-the-box experience, you don't need to know that. And so let's go back to the App Store, and let me just set up one here, show you quickly how to install it, and it's called SyncThing. And so if I go down here, well, I don't really need to go down and find it. I just go up here to the search window and type in SyncThing. All right, and mistyped it. Okay, SyncThing, and there it is. And so if I just click this install button right here, it's going to go ahead and install. I can click this continue in the background and close this and go on and do my business, my work, and continue my workflow and not have it be interrupted, or leave it the way it is. And I knew this was going to install quickly. All right, so here's SyncThing. This is a Docker container application, and now it's out in Casa OS, and I'm able to touch it and work with it. Now, the first thing you want to do once you install a Docker container application before you launch it is you want to go up here to these three dots and open it up, click on it, and click Settings, and get in, and make sure that all of these check marks in the port assignment area are green. If there are any check marks here that are not checked but are X's, they're not green but red, particularly this one that's 8384, because that's the port assignment that SyncThing runs on in your browser out on your desktop. So in other words, if port 8384 were being used, this would be not a check mark but an X. You'd need to go in here and reassign this port on the host, not the container. You don't want to touch these. You have to leave these alone. But you would need to change the port assignment on the host to some other port assignment not being utilized on your system between 0 and 65,000. That's a valid port assignment. And then change this one up here if it's for this particular one. Change it up here so that you can touch the container once you launch it. And then come down, once these are all green, come down to the volume section. You may need to add a volume if you know how to do that, or if you're directed on how to do it. Some of the instructions tell you how to add volumes if needed. Here I've just got a config folder and a data folder, which is a volume assignment here for those two things. That's normal. I'm going to leave that alone. I don't need to bother it. And then the environment variables here, you've got PGID, PUID, what stands for processor group identifier and processor user identifier. And they're both set to a value of 1,000. That's by default. Leave those alone. For the most part, you never have to touch any of this. And then for the time zone, that's what TC stands for. Out of the box, this will be ETC/UTC. I've already gone ahead and configured this to America/New York previously because I installed SyncThing earlier. And now it's all done. And down here on the restart policy, I'll mention that it's set to restart unless stopped. You can set it to on failure or always or whatever, but unless and stopped or whatever the default is what you usually want to leave it as. What this means is that unless I deliberately stop SyncThing, if it stops for some reason, not that I've stopped it, but something else has stopped it, it will automatically retry to restart, and it will continue doing that unless I deliberately stop it. So let me go ahead and save this. And it's going to give it a few seconds, and it will rebuild and come back up. And okay, and when it comes back to the normal appearance, then you just hover over it and click open. And here it is. So this is SyncThing. If you've never used it, you'll need to learn how to use this. I have used it. It's a great little utility in Linux. And see, you're able to use this without installing SyncThing. This is running as a Docker container within Casa OS. So you've got this ability to run this, and you've got that ability by the fact that you're able to touch it on your network at 192.168.1.125 at that port assignment 8384 right there. Okay, and you can touch this application on any device on your network, not just from your desktop computer. All right, so let me go ahead and close and get out of this. And I'm going to go ahead and uninstall SyncThing. I don't need it anymore. To do that, hit the three dots and come down to uninstall. And check the box here. You don't have to, but if you want to get rid of the user data, hit the delete user data and click uninstall. Wait a few seconds, and then the icon will just simply disappear from the interface, and then so it'll be gone. Now, the reason I say that you have to be concerned about how many Docker applications you have running at any one time. You see here I have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This one was running, so that would be 8 Docker containers running simultaneously. I think I've got 7 running right now, which is not a big deal. I've got 4 gigs of RAM here on the single board computer, Model 4 Raspberry Pi. But you got to be careful here. You'll want to get to a high capacity of your RAM, because every Docker container that continuously runs utilizes some of that RAM in order to be running consistently, all right, in the background. And so if you see that you're getting with a 4 gigabytes, why you don't want to use a 2 gigabyte model single board computer, use a 4 or higher. And I've got, like, say, 7 or 8. You'd never really need to run more than that at any one time, at the same time. You'd be okay. All right. But if you see that you're running out of RAM here, just come up here. Let's say if I want to shut down Dozel, then I'll just come up to the 3 dots and then come down here to the power button and hit the power button. And Dozel will gray out. And so that will reduce some of the RAM that's being utilized by that Docker container, and it won't be running anymore. All right, and so that's your Docker containers and how you can set those up. Now, I'll also do another video later on which shows you how I used an application that I installed using Casa OS called Nginx Proxy Manager. Nginx is a web server, kind of like Apache, but there's also an Nginx Proxy Manager application that allows you to take a Docker container that you have running out here and let Nginx Proxy Manager proxy that particular application with an SSL certificate and touch that application outside the network itself. All right. One such application I have running, I'll go ahead and just demonstrate that for you right now. I'm still on the desktop computer. I'm still on my network, but trust me, this will work outside of my network if I'm in an airport, library, doctor's office, wherever I have access to the internet. I can just fire up my laptop and get on wireless VPN and hit the browser, and then go to, I've already got it linked down here, but it's called Link Warden. And so I used Nginx Proxy Manager and set up a Let's Encrypt SSL certificate on top of that to make it secure. And so when I click on this, it goes to a subdomain of my domain that I own, which is dancalloway.com. And the subdomain is linkwarden.dancalloway.com. And so you can see I'm actually accessing the login interface for Link Warden without doing it locally in using an IP address. So I'm able to access this across the internet. And it is SSL protected. If I click on this, go to connection is secure, and come down here, certificate is valid. You can see that it's a valid SSL Let's Encrypt It certificate. Good for 90 days, and then it automatically renews. So this is a secure site, so any information that you have in here in a session can't be captured by anybody. So this is a neat thing you can do with Casa OS. So I highly recommend that you go ahead and take that single board computer that you have, Raspberry Pi or whatever it might be, install Debian 12 Bookworm or another Debian, another Linux distro, for instance, and like I said, the Casa OS will install on just about any standard Linux distro, and because it's an application layer that sits on top of it, and the curl script will take care of that for you. I demonstrated that earlier in the video here, and you just go ahead and set this up, and you can have what I have here. Now, one thing I did not show you that I want to show you really quickly. Let's go back out to the files, and I want to demonstrate this, and then we'll end the video. You've got here the app data folder, you've got your documents folder, you've got your downloads folder, you've got, this is the share that I have. I've got the gallery folder and media, so you're able to do movies, music, and TV shows just within Casa OS itself. And you don't have to worry about Plex necessarily, which is another media server that you can set up inside Casa OS, which I do have set up. All right, so let me go ahead and close this. And so that's the video for today. If you liked what you saw, if it was helpful for you, go ahead and hit that like button, and also hit the thumbs up and share share the video with other folks, and subscribe to my channel. That'll help support my channel. And so this has been Data Pioneer with the Linux Unix Tech channel. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.